This is a little bit different list than what I had, and I'm going to read it because some of you said you couldn't read the slide the last time. This is a list that I would encourage you to write for your spouse what you want them to do to show they love you, so they will know. And if they want to show you they love you, they will take this list and do something on it. 1, make me a cup of coffee in the morning. Quick, easy, cheap. Just the service, taking the time. Clean out your pockets and put your dirty clothes in the hamper. That can mean so much sometimes. Give me 15 minutes to decompress when I get home from work. After driving through rush hour traffic, nobody wants to get hit with all the problems of the day. Just a little bit of time to decompress. Plan a date and arrange for a babysitter. This is obviously for us guys a lot more. The ladies usually do this. We need to do this for her on occasion. Here's an easy one that I encourage anyone who's married to do. Pray with me while holding my hand. Kiss me passionately like we did when we were first married. And like I said before, do it in front of the kids. Make them gag. Make them just all kinds of bad sounds. They need to see that you love each other and you're willing to show that with each other. Send me a card and write something romantic in it. Dress up in some lingerie I like. Hold my hand when we are walking together in public. We're going to get to this tonight a little bit further on in the text. This is a sign of love to most women. If you're willing to hold her hand at the mall or here at church or wherever you might be, that you're proud to be with her. Fill up my car with gas and have it washed. That's an act of service. That sometimes if a woman wants an act of service and the man knows this, a lot of the time he'll say, yeah, I can go fill up the car with gas and wash it. Make me my favorite meal. Here's one. Pack up a picnic and take me to the park. You'll notice all these are easy to do quickly. They do not require much money, if any at all. They require time, effort, and thought. Now we're going to go a little bit deeper. I'm going to show you some quick examples. What you see up here is a standard wedding invitation blank sold at any business store like Staples or office supply places. You can take that, put it in your printer, print things on it, and send love messages to her. I took the Song of Solomon, a particular verse, and updated it for Florida here, as you can see. Here are some other examples. These will be up here whenever we get through if you want to come look at them. You can put these in various places so she can find them at different times. You don't want her discovering all of it at the same time. Also, I mentioned this one. Around Easter time, you have these eggs like this. Take a love note. Write it in there. A Bible verse. Tell her you love her. Well, some of us guys, we're not real good writers. So guess what? A lot of the time in the bookstores, you'll find little booklets like this. They have love poems, love notes, or whatever. Cheat. This is one place where plagiarism is welcomed. If you're really concerned, give credit to whoever the author is, if there is one. But just do it. It can mean so much. A lot of the time, women like to keep keepsakes. I'm sure that many of your wives have maybe the ticket to the first movie you went together, uh, various cards that you sent her, or so on and so forth. Target or stores like that will have a box like this. Pretty good box. I mean, it's durable, not that expensive. Buy her a box to put the mementos in. You want to go the extra mile? Go to an arts and crafts store and get a plain wood box like this and paint it specifically for her. When it comes anniversary time, pull the box out and go through what's in the box and reminisce. Remember the Bible verse from Revelation. Remember from where you have come and go back and do the things you did at first. You know, I say that's about women. This is not a woman's box. This one's mine. It's filled with the cards that I've received from the people that I spent hours in the hospitals working on broken marriages, all those difficult times. I opened it up today, and the very first one, a high school girl from Avon Park, hurt in an automobile accident. They did not think she would survive. She was in ICU for, I think, 2 to 3 weeks, and in the hospital for much longer than that. I went to visit her and her family about every other day while they were at Tampa General. All I have to do is look at that card, and it brings back those memories. And with that card is a letter from her family thanking me for what I did. Maybe you need your own box. Now we're going to talk about communication. There's an old Indian legend, supposedly, about 2 wolves inside each one of us, one evil and one good. We can only feed one wolf enough for it to survive. So which one will survive? It's the one we feed the most. We have to spend time feeding our marriages with good things. Otherwise, we will slip into the bad things. That's why I suggest the love list. I have seen the love list turn a marriage around. It's very simple, actually. Once you get to the point where you're having marital problems to the point you're even thinking about separating or divorcing or whatever, it's almost all negative. And that's all you think about. That's all you dwell on. I can take a couple and we work on those negative things and we try to eliminate those, or at least get them where they're manageable. But I also want them to feed each other with good things. That's what the love list is about. It actually changes their frame of mind so much that they begin to think some good things, and their whole attitude towards their spouse changes. Communication, the all-important ingredient for any relationship, any organization, any business, any military or nation to be successful. During the invasions of Panama and Grenada, the U.S. military learned that it had a serious and deadly lapse in communication. The operations required close coordination between the Air Force, the Army, and the Marines to be successful. But there were serious communication issues between those services. Because of the lessons learned during those invasions, the U.S. adopted what we now know as the all-source army, the combined force army, all forces working together side by side and communicating. It was required to get the job done. Many businesses have learned that they have the same problem. Those that adapted an effective means of communication within the business were successful, and those that didn't failed. And our marriage and family relationships have that same requirement. This is where, once again, it's critical to understand the differences between men and women that can get in the way of effective communication. We have a slide here which lists the gender differences. Under men, talk is for information. Listening is for information. Silence, it's no big deal. Remember what I told you, we guys, we can go out in a fishing boat, spend all day long, and hardly say anything to each other. And what we do say will be very superficial. And we're fine with that. Chit-chat's a waste of time. We don't talk small talk, period. And we rarely tell personal matters to our male friends. We don't talk about our marital problems most of the time to our male friends. It has to be a very, very close male friend before we'll tell somebody that, or any other problem that we're having. Now, if we look at the way that women look at communication, you'll notice in many ways it's almost the exact opposite. For women, talk is for interaction, for getting to know someone, for feeling close to someone. Listening is for interest, not just information. She wants to know more. There's a lot of funny videos that come out today, and I think they're either in Australia, New Zealand, or someplace where a couple where the guy plays a comic and he's showing his wife's reaction about how would a man tell his wife, I had a flat. I had a flat today. That's it. And he says, how would my wife tell me she had a flat? You're never going to believe this. I was out this morning, I was driving to the mall, and it goes on and on and on and on. Well, that's how women tell a story. Chit-chat is a means of connecting. How do you go to Walmart and shop? You ladies, you'll go there and you'll run into your friend and you will stand in the aisle talking to your friend, blocking the aisle for 30 minutes. It's just how you react. It's how you do it. And women usually know the intimate details of a friend's life. Now, it's once again important to remember neither one of these is right or wrong. It's just different. If we don't notice these differences, we can set up failure. Both sexes need to adjust their methods of communication when interacting with the opposite sex. Why do women talk? To convey information. Well, we saw that's for a man, yeah. But that's where the similarities end right there. Women talk so that they can organize their thoughts, to create a relationship and to create intimacy with someone, and to feel better and more centered when they're upset. Women solve problems much of the time by talking. That's just how they work. So, how do we as men talk to a woman if we want to communicate? Number one, give her your full attention. This is football season. Give her your full attention. That means turn the football game off if you're going to talk. If you have to watch the football game, you make sure you talk with her either before or after the football game. And that will keep you out of a lot of trouble. Number 2, listen for her feelings and take them seriously. What did I say about, and I asked the question of many of you men in here, do you really care what another man is feeling? And most of you gave the answer that I expected, just like I would. No. I don't usually take into consideration that much how another man is feeling. I take into consideration what it takes to get the job done. How I feel about it doesn't matter. My job is to do the job as quickly as possible, not a woman. You have to listen for those feelings. Going back there to 1 Peter 3, verse 7. Husbands, live with your wives in an understanding manner. Learn to listen to her and respect her when she's talking to you. Share. Don't solve whatever she needs to talk about. I talked about this one. I learned it the hard way, if you will. She doesn't usually want you to do the male thing. How would I solve this problem? A, B, C, D. No, she wants to talk through it. You have to let her talk through it to communicate in her way. And you can't rush this. You cannot have a time schedule on this. You have to let it go as it flows. Take time to actually connect with her. You need to support both her and her feelings. It's going to be hard for some of you guys if you try to do it. You don't want to try to talk her out of it. You don't offer uninvited solutions. If she truly wants your idea on what a solution might be, okay. But otherwise, try not to offer them. And don't minimize the situation. Sometimes we tend to think, well, that's no big deal. You shouldn't be that way. We as men, many times, will do that with our children. What's an emergency to our children seems like something small to us. And we tend to think, that shouldn't even be a problem. We've got to learn, in a child's world, this is critical. So-and-so won't speak to me. Well, just go on, don't pay any attention to her. No, that's not how a child looks at it. It's important that friend speak to them. Why do men talk? Again, to convey information. What is it I need to know? What is the ABCD? They like brevity. Just the facts, ma'am. If any of you are old enough to remember a program called Dragnet, that was kind of the byword of the sergeant there. Just the facts, ma'am. Don't bother me with all the details. They like brief statements. They don't want all the colors and all the friends and all the avenues and all the other things that you tend to give. They like worthwhile comments. Again, the more important things. Don't bother me with frivolous things. Tell me what's important here. What do I really need to be looking at? Now here's a danger. They may hear hidden messages about their competency. They may hear hidden messages about their competency. Men are very sensitive, believe it or not, to your opinion as their wives. And if they think they failed, it gets to them. what you say may not be an attack on their competency, but they may receive it as one. So try to be watching for that. And lastly, they want to solve problems. So how do you talk to a man if you're a woman? Get to the point as soon as you can. Clarify exactly what you need from him. Make it brief, concise. Kind of like some of you deacons who come up and make announcements. Be concise. Get it down to the facts. Little hit there from an elder. Does he need to, correction, let me go back on it, to listen and share your experience or to solve a problem? A man will generally tell you what he wants. He usually won't beat around the bush. And then give him time to think about it. See, they'll get this idea, they'll get the ABCD, and then they'll go off and it'll be rolling around in their heads. They may be out working on an engine, or they may be mowing the lawn, but that brain is working and thinking about that problem. I have found, growing up on a ranch in Texas, some of the best problem solving, some of the best interaction on how to do things was done while plowing a field. You can plow that field, get on that tractor, go row after row. You're plowing the field, but in your mind, you're going over and over a situation. Sometimes I can formulate a lesson or a sermon or something else while I'm mowing the lawn. Sometimes I get out there and mow the lawn and I get to ruminating on something that I shouldn't, and I get down because the mind is working. And that's how we men act. So now let's get down to what we're going to say is a husband's top correction. I think I got my slides here backwards. A woman's top 5 marital needs. Willard Harley is a widely recognized author and lecturer on marital relationships and the differences between men and women. In his book, His Needs, Her Needs, he lists the top 5 needs of men and women that he's seen in his research. This is his list for those 5 needs. And you have to realize, not all women will fit into this category. But this is a generalization of most women across the board. Number 1, affection. To most women, affection symbolizes security, protection, comfort, and approval. When a man shows affection, he conveys the following message to his wife. I'll take care of you and protect you. I'm concerned about the problems you face, and I'm with you. I think you've done a good job, and I'm proud of you. So what's the most effective way of conveying affection to a wife? Very simple. A hug. Most women crave hugs. I want you to think about any movie, romantic movies, you know, those movies that she occasionally makes you sit down and watch, even though the Hallmark movies that we have endured during the Christmas season. Where does the woman go? What does she do? She goes to the arms of her hero in some form of hug. That's her place of security, of protection, and of safety. This is where I think of the movie Romancing the Stone. Wilder Jean the Wilder? The Jean the Wilder? Jean is forever dreaming of swooning in her hero's arms. It's where she longs to be. What are other forms of affection? Holding hands, giving gifts, showing individualized attention, anything that shows she is important to you. But to most men, there's a disconnect on this subject, again, because of the differences between men and women. I'm going to keep going back to this subject. Ask most men what affection means to them, and they will answer sex. One of the basic differences between men and women. Here's a phrase you're going to see again. A man needs sex to feel loved, and a woman needs to feel loved to have sex. Need to let that sink in. A man needs sex to feel loved, and a woman needs to feel loved to have sex. For now, let's just remember that we're discussing what a woman considers affection, or feeling what love is to her. Number 2, conversation. First of all, guys, conversation does not mean talking about yourself. She wants to share her thoughts, her concerns, her fears, etc. And to do that, it requires time without distractions. I still remember my dating and engagement period with Debbie. I didn't have any money. We were both in college. And at the time, for part of that, I was on the track team and ran up to 25 miles a day. So you can kind of imagine I was a little bit exhausted. What free time we did have, we spent talking. We knew a whole lot about each other before we got married because we spent all that time talking. That's something that many of our young couples today have failed to do before getting married. Just talking and getting to know each other. Your family history, what you like to eat, what you like to do in your spare time, what are your hobbies, what are your interests, how did you grow up, where did you come from, how big is your family, where did they come from, why won't they talk to you, all those kinds of things. Your feelings, your goals, your ambitions, your likes and dislikes. That's why my premarital questionnaires are so in-depth and they cover so many subjects. I cover the major subjects that tend to become problems in marriage if they're not discussed ahead of time. Going to a movie and eating a meal together is not a conversation, at least not to the level that's required in a relationship. Do you have time together that actually allows you to get past all the superficial subjects to what's going on inside? As we grow older, other things push out chances for communications. Working, raising children, life challenges, health issues, and lack of energy. However, that's still not the primary thief of communication that we face today, is at least that I see. The phone, the television, the tablet, the social media have skyrocketed to first place of being a thief to conversation. I'm not saying these things are wrong or evil in and of themselves. I'm just saying we've allowed them to take over our lives. I want you to be honest with yourself. Next time you, let's say, go to the doctor and you're in the waiting room, I want you to look around and see what the other people are doing. When you see a gathering of teenagers and there's no specific activity to keep them busy, I want you to see what they're doing. Again, in and of itself, it's not necessarily bad until it takes over. And it has taken over in many of our homes. Some of our young people no longer even talk to each other when they're in the same room together. They text each other. We're losing something we don't even know we're losing. We're losing the ability to interact and learn from each other. You see, voice tone, body language, volume, all those things play a part in communication. As I've said in counseling, I may be asking one person a question, but I will be watching the other person to see their reaction. Their reaction will tell me far more than what they say or don't say in response to that question. Phones, texts, and emails don't convey feelings, emotions, reactions, and intentions correctly or adequately. It's even become common that people break up via text. They don't have the guts to come face to face and break up. They got to do it the coward's way in a text. In order to have time to have conversations, couples have to share common interests together. We generally all have things that interest just us, but couples need to develop common interests as well. For instance, when we first moved to the Tampa area, when I was home at least, we would all try to go to Anna Maria Island for the entire day. We would get up before daylight, get down there, find a good place on the beach. I would set up my fishing poles because I like fishing. Debbie loves to read and she loves the beach, so she would sit in the chair while I fished. The kids would snorkel, do whatever they wanted to do. After 2 or 3 hours, hey, anybody that fishes in the ocean knows that a lot of the time, most of the fish are going to be biting like between 9 and 11. And so I would put my poles up, then I would either go sit with Debbie or we would go walking down the beach. And then I would spend some time with the kids as well. And then later on, again, the fish would start biting along about 4 or 5, and I would fish for a while longer. You see, we did what we wanted to do individually, but we made time and a situation where we could share together. We could talk deeply about things. It allowed us to participate in those individual things, but also gave us that time that we needed. Number 3, honesty and openness. Trust and respect are absolute requirements in a healthy relationship. If you do not have trust and respect, there's a very good chance the relationship's going to fail. If one or both spouses fail to be truthful and or are open with each other, are not open with each other, they're likely to be doomed. And you have to remember, sometimes it only takes one time to destroy complete trust. This is my opinion, and I think that's one reason why the only reason that God allows divorce is because he knows that in some cases the trust will never be reestablished. It can be, but it might not be. It's advisable for both spouses to be completely open and upfront about all subjects. If there's going to be anything that's going to cause mistrust or misunderstanding, it should be shared immediately. Here's another example. I've sometimes gone to lunch with another woman. I have always had some women friends. When we would go to Anna Maria Island, I'd scuba dive. Most of you know me. When I scuba dived till I couldn't stand up. Well, I would go through 3 or 4 partners. Tammy Lyons, who still attends here, is a scuba diver. And she would go, and her friend that lived with her was a scuba diver. I'd go scuba diving with one, get out, change tanks, go scuba diving with the other, go fill up the tanks, come back, and go scuba diving with the third. But sometimes I would go out to eat with one of these female friends. But I always told Debbie who I was going to be with, where we were going, and whatever else she might want to know about it. I gained her approval, and she had knowledge beforehand. And it paid off. Because one day, one of our members saw me out with another woman and proceeded to call her and tell her, "Do you know that Dwight's out with another woman?" To which she replied, "Yes, I do, and that's none of your business." But you see, only because we were completely open with each other. During my travels and army assignments, I've also had friendships with other women, and I've conversed with them via mail afterwards. I made sure she read their letters and my replies to their letters. I was always willing to answer any concern that she might have, and I tried not to hide anything. Now, each couple's going to have to decide whether they're willing to allow this magnitude of freedom, if you will. Every couple is different. Whatever you decide in your relationship, it's going to require absolute honesty and openness. And while we're on that subject, let me address the subject of hugging other women. Debbie doesn't have a problem with me hugging other women, but I have a rule about that. I will not initiate a hug with a woman unless I know she likes to be hugged or she shows some sign that she desires to be hugged. If I sense any apprehension, I'm not going to hug her. I know some of you have different rules, and you come to those rules, you come to those decisions on your own. But back to the subject at hand, let's address the sharing of passwords, texts, letters, and the like. In my opinion, your spouse should know all your passwords, all your phone codes, read all your social correspondence if they want to, and have access to them at any time. I'm not saying they ought to be searching them for any cause, but again, if everything's totally open and honest, there's not even a feeling that anything's being hidden. If you give that feeling that it's being hidden, it's going to start maybe a tiny wedge, and that wedge may grow stronger. If a spouse is regularly searching for suspected problems without reason, that's a whole different problem. That indicates jealousy, and jealousy is super dangerous because jealousy does not require proof. Jealousy manufactures whatever proof is needed. And I've found in counseling that someone who's super jealous is usually guilty of the very offense they're trying to discover or they're trying to hide in their own life. I had a couple that I tried to counsel for quite some time, and session after session, the man would come back and he just knew his wife was having an affair. Believe me, after a while, you can pretty well judge whether or not someone's having an affair. She wasn't having an affair. I knew it. I got tired of listening to it. So I turned to her while he was still talking and said, "Do you mind if he hires a private investigator?" She said, "No." I said, "Did you hear that? If you think she's had an affair, you go hire a private investigator. Otherwise, shut up." The reality of the situation? He had had an affair with his wife's sister in their bedroom for an extended period of time. And he couldn't understand why she had a problem with him. I felt so sorry for the woman. If he would have just admitted his guilt, faced up to the consequences, she would have tried to make that marriage work. But he wouldn't do it. He wanted to find something on her. In his years of counseling, Willard Harley says he's discovered 3 kinds of dishonest behavior in husbands. Number 1, the born liar. This man has consistently lied about small issues all of his life. When he's confronted with them, he dismisses that action as, well, that's just a lapse of memory. I just forgot. A chronic liar's behavior is so ingrained, it's not likely to change. It can, but it's not likely. A woman, or also a man, should avoid getting into any kind of relationship with a born liar. Remember what I said, if you see the signs before you're married, do not think you're going to change them. Realize you are marrying a born liar, and then when you say, "I do," that was part of the contract. Number 2, the avoid trouble liar. This man or woman doesn't lie all the time, but only when there's pressure or there's a significant problem. Suppose he was supposed to arrange for a babysitter for a night out. When he's asked about it, he assures his wife, I've taken care of that, although he hasn't. We all know how life happens. He gets busy, things happen, he gets a phone call, got to go to work, got to do this, and he doesn't arrange for that babysitter. And then it's time to go out, and the babysitter doesn't show up. Well, the babysitter must have forgotten. Wife checks with the babysitter. I didn't get any call. When he's confronted with it, he doesn't admit it. He continues to blame the babysitter. Well, she must be lying to us. We can't depend on her. We shouldn't use her anymore. He puts all the blame on the babysitter and refuses to take the blame for his own actions. But once again, if you see this before you marry, you need to assume it's going to continue after the marriage, and you're not going to change it. Number 3, the protector liar. This man believes that the truth would just be too traumatic for his wife to bear. He lies in order to protect her. Maybe he hasn't been paying all the bills on time, and now the creditors are sending notices. Well, in order to pay the bills, he goes out and borrows more money. Let's say he is able, after a period of time, to pay both the loan and the money, but during that time, he's been under incredible stress to keep his wife from finding out. Because you see, his ego is all critical. How his wife views him is more important than her knowing the truth. The only problem with this situation, besides creating other problems, is that sometimes the gamble doesn't pay off. and the wife finds out when they get the eviction notice. Be careful of the bets you place. You may have to pay them. And when your wife finds out that you lose your home because you weren't paying the bills, were the lies worth it? What if someone's had an affair and they're trying to restore trust in the marriage? This is a very, very difficult process, but I have seen it work. I had a case where a man had an affair with a coworker, but he wanted to save his marriage. He openly admitted everything that he did. He told her all the details she wanted to know. I watched as he did that. He didn't take my urging. He told her in front of me. He had lied to her about where he was at. Maybe, let's say, how much time it was going to take him to go, et cetera, et cetera. Just lies to cover it up. When I have a situation like this, and they both want to try to regain the trust, I will ask the injured party, what do you want from them? I want you to tell them and me right now what you expect from them in order to regain trust. And then I want to see if I think they're reasonable. They have to be reasonable. I'm not going to allow unreasonable inquiries. In his particular case, she said, I want to know when you leave work, where you're going. I know it takes X amount of time generally for you to get home. If there's a car pileup, you can go find out, I-4's closed or whatever. So I would tell him, every time you go to work, you leave work, or any time in between, you call her and tell her, I'm on my way home. And then she can more or less tell when you need to be home. Now this takes a while. And it takes complete openness on that individual's part, but he did it. They actually worked back through that. I'll give the man credit for a major thing. He immediately resigned from that job, even though he had been working there for over 25 years. That's how much he was willing to sacrifice to prove to his wife he wanted the marriage to work. So I know it can work, but it is a hard road once you lose that trust. Financial support. I'm going to borrow a phrase from the Bible, 1 Corinthians 11:14. Does not nature itself teach you? I want you to finish this sentence. I'm going to give you the sentence with 2 blanks. Then I will ask you to fill in the blanks. A man will marry for blank, and a woman will marry for blank. What do you think the blanks are? A man will marry for what? Beauty. And a woman will marry for money. Our very nature tells us something about the needs of men and women. We make fun of all the examples of women who marry an old rich man, ugly as all get out. But how many instances do we see of a woman, a man marrying a rich old woman? The truth is, women do marry for money to some degree. It's just in their nature. They usually marry a man that they think can provide for them at least as much financial security as their fathers provided. Now here we're touching on a subject that can lead to some lively disagreement for those of us in the church and in the world in general. In generations prior, most married women stayed at home and raised the children while the husband was tasked to provide the income necessary to maintain the household. I think we could probably all pretty well agree that today that's more the exception than the rule. The question is that really what women inherently want to do? Work and bring home an income, or stay at home and keep house and the children? And what did God intend for women in the first place? Whether you agree with this or not, let me read to you what Paul says in 1 Timothy 5:14 regarding young widows. Therefore, I want younger widows to get married, bear children, keep house, and give the enemy no reason for reproach. The world today tells us that a woman can have it all: a career, a home, children, success. I'm telling you, that's a lie. We see movie stars with their 10 kids, and yet they're making movies and they're going places and they're on the red carpet. I'll tell you what you don't see. You don't see the nannies that are really raising those children. They're not raising them. They're with them occasionally. They drop by and they hug them and they, so they don't forget their faces, but it's the nannies that are teaching them the day-to-day things. Debbie and I made a conscious decision for her to stay home while we still had kids at home. Now that put us far behind some of our peers financially, but I firmly believe that it was the right thing to do. I'll give you an example of how I learned that, and it was from another man, and we'll close with this. I was teaching at the University of Louisville, and we had a command sergeant major that was about to retire. Like most career Army men, he worked well past quitting time, always late, but as he got nearer to retirement, he made a decision. If I don't have something that has to be completed, it's going to wait till tomorrow, because my boys keep telling me, Dad, you're never home. We can't talk to you. So he went home. Come at 5 o'clock, he would go home. And for about 2 weeks, he would sit there, and they would come in from school, and they would say, Hi, Dad, and they'd go off to their room. Being the man that he was, he kind of got a little bit upset about that. And he called them in, and he said, I have been coming home because you said that I was never here to talk with you, and I've been home for nearly 2 weeks now, and y'all don't come talk to me. And the response was, yeah, Dad, but we know we can if we need to. That is the reason why, if possible, the woman needs to be home or the man needs to be home with the kids. They don't have to talk, but they know they can. And that's security. So we'll pick up there next week. I hope you learned some things from tonight, and we'll continue on with a woman's top 5 needs next week.